Hi, everybody. Ann here, Ann McClure, residential realtor with McInerney Associates. And I wanted to thank you for joining us for our second episode of Ask the Expert. This week, we have with us Pragya Mishra. She's a landscape architect, and she is the owner of Artscapes. And she's been in the industry for a good 20 years. She brings a lot of expertise to the field, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Pragya here in a minute and hear from her. Pragya, thank you for joining us today.
And thank you for having me.
We're really excited to talk to you about how to increase your living space by improving your outdoor space. And we'll get to that in a second. I wanted to share a brief update about the market. We're several weeks now into this pandemic, most of us living and working and everything else from home, which is why we wanted to do the topic about increasing your living space as you can expand into your outdoors. So we're going to hit on that, but I thought I'd share a little bit of market data with you first. For the week of April 12th through the 18th, so last week, there was almost a 41% reduction in the number of newly ratified contracts. If you looked at that same period last year, so we're down 40.8%, almost 41%, which sounds like a huge number, and it is, except that the number of listings coming on is also slightly less than it was last year, and we're still seeing homes go under contract at record speed. Right now, we're seeing homes on the market just an average of 22 days, and this time last year was 28 days. So what that's telling us is that the buyers out there are very motivated. Motivated sellers are still putting their homes on the market, and then buyers are still out there looking. We're all being careful. We're looking a little bit differently than we did with virtual open houses and virtual tours and lots of drive-bys to qualify properties first. So business is still happening. And if you know somebody who wants to consult with an expert realtor about buying or selling in the midst of all this or getting ready during all this, I'm happy to chat. And I hope you'll keep me in mind. So I don't want to belabor that too much, but if you have more questions about your specific neighborhood or the market, please feel free to reach out to me, or you can send me a text or email and we'll figure out a time to chat. So Pragya, thank you again for joining me today. I have really loved your vision for projects small and large. I have sort of this notion that I started with before I met you, that landscape architects only work on these big, fancy, expansive estates. And of course, you have corrected my thinking on that. I am so pleased that we met on a small project years ago. I was helping a client of mine named Jim in Alexandria, and you helped me figure out a budget for what we could do to a yard that had been neglected. It had been a rental property, and you helped me, and we got the house sold in record time with multiple offers. And since then, you and I have worked together on many different kinds of projects. You've been so good about working with me and my clients, helping solve everything from hilly backyards and how to terrace them and work with the landscape to drainage issues. We had a mutual client, Mike, who he had a swimming pool in his backyard, but around the swimming pool he had another pool because there was so much water, and that's all been corrected thanks to your talent. So most recently helped me with a retaining wall issue. We did a home inspection, and there were some questions about the retaining wall, and you went by and consulted with us. And it was really good to understand what was going on with the wall, what the cost would be to remedy. So thank you for all of that. And as I was thinking about experts we could invite and how to highlight them during this unfathomable time, I was reflecting on things I keep hearing my clients say, which is, oh, we just don't have enough space. It's usually music to a realtor's ears, right? Is it moving your future? Or thank goodness we can get out and it's spring because, I've got to get out of this house. Or I wish I had another room I could go to. The kids, the dog, the cat, whatever it is, my spouse is driving me crazy and I just need to work in peace. So I remembered something you said, which is that you can take your outdoor space and create rooms out of it, even if you have a small yard. And you can increase your living space that way. So that was why I wanted to reach out to you today. Thank you for sharing that idea. So Pragya, given all of that, let's just launch into the first question. How do you create outdoor rooms, or how have you had clients do that in the past? And how might different spaces be used?
Absolutely. Outdoor rooms, you can create outdoor rooms just like you have your indoor rooms. You know, you have to kind of find a purpose, how you want to use your rooms, and then look from inside the house, where are the spaces that you can see that you want to use. Um, just like indoor space where you have a kitchen, dining, living area, you want to create a similar look in your outdoor space. It can be outdoor rooms can be used for several purposes. Like, for example, entertaining, family dining, playing games, reading, especially now, maybe working outside. Um, and if you need one lot, I usually prefer to having different smaller rooms that's connected. Um, and multiple outdoor rooms does not require like lots of land. Poster size, stamp size, like a front lawn or narrow side yard can be landscaped to be rooms by themselves, not just a walkway. It can be shady, quiet, meandering path connecting you to a dining area with hydrangeas, houses, or it can be lattices. Um, Outdoor room can also be multifunctional, but it has to be engaging. Like, how do you, um, how do you use it? Like, for example, if you have a deck, you want to outside the kitchen, you want to leave your outdoor grill on the deck next to the kitchen versus having it far away where you probably wouldn't use your outdoor kitchen as much. Um, so just creating different outdoor rooms. I hope I answered that question.
No, you did. And I was thinking about when you just said it has to be engaging. You know that feeling when you walk up to a house, which is probably created by somebody like you, and you know, the walkway, the landscaping, the front porch, everything makes you just want to go in. And then when you're inside, the same thing. You know, I want people to have that emotional reaction when they go in a house. So I understand what you're saying. You want the space is engaging and people want to be there. People want to stay outside and do whatever it is that they plan to do, but whether it's like you said, reading, or I'm picturing, you know, not just the games of cornhole, but having a nice table outside where you can do puzzles with the kids or, you know, homework or whatever.
Absolutely. You could have a little like a gazebo-like area with a fan, with a table outside where you can use as a dining, or kids can go outside and do their homework,
Right.
or take your laptop with you. So it can be a multi-purpose room. You know, it doesn't have to be just, okay, this is dining only, or this is work only, because sometimes a lot of us don't have that much extra space. So you have to be creative on how to use that multi-purpose rooms.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Well, um, I I heard you say something too about the small spaces and creating paths and so on. So it sounds like you're really not limited by space. I mean, a lot of my clients have townhomes or maybe even condos where they have a balcony or they don't have a true yard. They want to create a space. So I mean, I guess some people have multiple spaces and you can work with any size.
Yeah. Um, it all depends on just because you have a townhouse doesn't mean you can't create this beautiful outdoor living space. It's actually a lot more fun to work on a small space because you have to be really creative, and you have to use every outdoor usable space, or you also have to kind of use borrowed space sometimes. It's using your neighbor's tree or something as a canopy. So just because you have a townhouse does not mean you cannot create a beautiful outdoor spaces. I have done plenty of work with clients where we created different level of rooms in townhouse. And again, it's not just rooms, it's also how do you move from one room to the next, what's the journey like, what do you see from inside. So um, it's the misconception that's there, like you need to have acres and acres of land. You don't need to. It's more about being creative and how to work that space.
Okay. So, you know, when people are thinking about outdoor spaces or outdoor rooms, how do things like sensory or visual cues or structures like well, you mentioned the next door neighbor's tree overhanging and creating sort of a canopy. or hedges or benches. Earlier you mentioned the pathway transition. So what should people think about in terms of those sensory or visual cues?
No, sensory and visual cues are really important. That's why we landscape designers, we use lots of plants, hedges or walls to create lines. Basically, with your outdoor rooms, you want to add floor, you want to add walls, you want to add a ceiling. How do you do that outside, right? How do you do that in your townhouse backyard? For example, layer floor. You want to create your patio space, either flagstone, natural stone, pavers. Add walls. If you have big wide space, then you can add walls with greenery, or if you have a smaller space, you can actually use your fence in your backyard as walls, and you can use lattice or other planters that's climbing. And then ceiling wise, what you want to do is, if you don't want to add a covered structure, use a canopy of your neighbor's tree as a ceiling. And just creating the transition spaces, like the meandering path or a straight path with the hedges going along, where your eyes just move from one space to the next. So yeah, using sensory and visual thinking space with the textures.
And Jennifer just shared some pictures of some of your projects. So, and for everybody watching, those weren't just stock photography. That was Pragya's work at homes of different sizes, all kinds of different projects, formal and less formal seating areas, and so on. Pragya, mentioning the structures makes me think too about the challenges you can have with certain, I think like hilly neighborhoods of like parts of Bethesda or Arlington, where you have, you've got that structure that you have to work with, which is the land, which is almost like a wall itself. So, what about, elevation changes, let alone transitions like coming from the inside to the outside on a deck? So how do you work with those kinds of things?
Elevation changes, for a lot of people, they don't like it when they first see it. If it's a homeowner, they're like, oh, I have a slopey backyard. But for us, it's a great opportunity to create different levels of rooms. For example, if it's a very hilly, steep area, you create one space up top and you connect it with steps or stairs going down. So now you have two different spaces already. Even in a small townhouse that I just did, we have a decking, steps, a patio, and you step down and you have a lower patio. We have to deal with those different levels. But yeah, actually, elevation changes are one of the most common thing we as a landscape designer have to deal with, because we're not working with just a flat space. Like, for example, interior designers who work with ceiling and wall. It's a flat spaces you're working on, whereas we don't have that luxury. But that can be turned into a really fun way of dealing with the changes, because you look at, when you're up on the deck, you look down on the patio, you see the different view of the garden. When you're on the patio, when you look back towards the house, you see the house in a different way. So where do you place your benches? Where do you place your dining table? So it's a lot of fun little things you can work with.
It's almost like theater in the round, because you have to think about seeing it from all different angles and heights, right?
Absolutely, that's exactly correct. Because a lot of times we look at outside from inside of your house, right? You just have one view of your house. But when you shift that view, because a lot of people, they have beautiful house. When you shift that view, you look at the house from a way in the backyard, when you look back, you see the house in a whole different way. So creating those spaces.
Nothing drives me more crazy than when you have this gorgeous house on the inside and they haven't done anything on the outside. It's like you don't entice people to want to open your package. It's like you stuck a beautiful gift in a ratty old shoebox. So I love when people think about the different angles of seeing things, like you said, the approach to the house from inside the front looking out, from the deck looking down, or wherever.
I'm sorry, if I may add, another thing too is if you have kids, that you can create a little secret gardens for them. You know, like, it doesn't have to be expensive built secret garden. It's just several bushes and how it's placed and little flagstone. Because kids, they like being creative in their own way. So when they're out there, you know, imagining, I don't know, fairies and this these little spaces, it's just fun for them to have that space too. So it's just all about um, understanding, you know, how you want to use your space, and then communicating with somebody like me, and then we will create that space for you. You don't have to worry about where to find it. We'll find that space for you.
You know, I remember being a kid and loving those spaces, whether it was like your secret garden or you could build a fort because it was a perfect little enclosed area.
Yeah.
So, and my sister and I had this area we called the woods, and it was not very deep, and it really wasn't woods. It was just a space between two houses, but to us it was the woods because it's that whole secret garden thing, right?
Right. Right.
So, you know, I'm thinking, like, as people spend more and more time outside, you know, sometimes I'll hear the complaint, not yet because it's cool and we haven't really heard this yet, but oh, I want to be outside, but the gnats or the mosquitoes are driving me crazy. So, like, what can you do about pests? Like, how can we manage pests so people can really use this additional space they're creating?
Absolutely. The easiest thing to deal with mosquitoes are fans, outdoor fans. If you have a deck or if you have any kind of structure, you can install an outdoor fan. And they used to be pricier back in the days, but it's actually reasonable these days. Actually, I also see newer fans, so you have a, like, outdoor fan, you can move.
Let me lean in a little bit. You got a little fuzzy there. So what were you saying about an outdoor fan?
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's much better.
The outdoor fans takes care of the bugs because they don't like the wind moving.
Okay.
And so if you have a pergola or a deck, you can always install an outdoor fan to get rid of the bugs. That way, when you're outside in the hot summer, you are under the fan, keep you cool, and also the bugs wouldn't bother you as much. But you can also use candles, or some people get their yard sprayed. But the best thing that I recommend is having.
So you said you could use candles, or what was the other thing? Oh, you can have the yard sprayed?
Yard sprayed,
Okay.
candles or yard sprayed, various things like that.
And then the whole bird baths or ponds or...
Oh, yeah, bird baths and ponds are always good too, but you want to be careful of not having any stagnant water sitting in your yard, because that would just bring mosquitoes. So check for those standing water. So it's always great to have outdoor fountains or outdoor water feature where you have the moving of the, you listen to the sound. So, and that's the thing when you're out in space. So that is, if there's lots of cars to go back and forth, you can actually cancel the sound by the water feature.
Okay, water feature or speakers or whatever. Okay. I just repeated what you said because it got a little bit crackly.
Yeah.
So, you know, another thing that I was thinking about, Pragya, and you touched on it earlier with imagining fairies in the yard, because I was thinking about lighting. You know, I guess because of natural light, a space could look different in the morning than midday when the sun is bright overhead, afternoon, or even evening. I've been in gardens before that almost feel like they're glowing because of the way things have been set up, or the plant, you know, the plants around. And then of course adding light, right? Whether it's those little low lights or some kind of overhead light or uplighting on trees. So could you talk a little bit about ways you can use the light for these outdoor spaces?
Absolutely.
Oh, those are great pictures of your project.
Oh, thank you. And you know, with the lights, let's just talk about natural light first. With the sunlight, you know, it changes all in one day. It changes so many different angles as the sun moves, or if it's a cloudy day, what it might be. So it's, you have to design natural light too. Like, you know,
We're losing you a little. Could you say that again?
Like for example, if you are using like the natural light, using of the natural light, we have to be conscious of the where the sun is. If you have a basketball hoop, you don't want it to be facing the sun when you're playing because the
Oh, right.
light's going to be in your eye, right? Or some of my clients love shady areas. Some of my clients want sunlight because they like to sunbathe. So where do you place these furnitures? Where do you place sitting area? And also, if you have noticed, when you are outside in sun, sometimes you see the morning sun coming through the branches, the dark light. It's so
Sometimes,
pretty.
say that again. Sometimes you see what?
Sunlight coming through the branches.
Oh, yeah,
It
I love
just
that
have the
look.
dapple light, and
Yes,
it's early in the morning, and it's so nice to be out there. Let's just say if you're doing your meditation or your yoga in your backyard, it's such a nice time to have that. And
right.
and as the sunlight moves, you move it. But then again, outdoor lights kind of similar to outdoor fireplace. You don't have to limit your use of your garden for the daytime. You can extend it. The outdoor lights are magical. um, and then with the outdoor lights, you can apply the tree or path lights, and it's for me at least, again, going back to very magical. You can create that magical pathway, magical patio when you're out there sitting down having dinner, or just sitting down after a long day of work and drinking tea. It's just, you get to see your outdoor space in a different light.
We lost you there at the end, but I heard up to the drinking tea outside. And I remember a project you and I worked on. You had already been to the house, and then I got the listing later. And I remember I was there at dusk with the owner, and I went up around the side of the house, and the lighting and the path was so special. And it really did have this feeling like you were going to see little fairies twinkling, amidst the fireflies. It was so nice. And you told me a really sweet story about your daughter, like the cobbler in his shoes, like you fixing your outdoor lighting, you pay attention to everybody else's projects, but then you fixed yours. And would you share what your daughter said?
Sure. Yeah, actually, I recently fixed all my outdoor lights, which hadn't worked for a long time. And, but finally we got it done. And I was sitting in my bay window with my 7-year-old, and she looked outside and she said, "Mommy, this is magical. It's almost like fairies are dancing outside." And the funny thing was, I was thinking the same thing, but I didn't share that with me. Being an adult, you don't say. But it was such a nice thing to look outside, and it's just a quiet, just her and I sitting on a bench looking outside. You see the garden in a whole different way. The textures reflect differently with the lights. Yeah, that was a magical moment for me.
That's awesome. Those memories you create with your family, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pleased you shared that. So, and then, another thought that occurred to me, well, actually, I remember I had a friend. Well, I have a friend, a good friend. She was a client also. And you and I had a funny thing happen where she bought a house because she and her husband fell in love with the deck. And that is a spectacular deck, the one in Bethesda. And she even said to me, "It's even amazing how you transition from the room that's sort of like a den out onto the deck, and you can just flow, and if you're entertaining." And it was really funny because later, total coincidence, we realized you had done that deck for a different client, the previous owner.
Yep.
And you said, "Oh, do you like how the flow works?" And so it was like you two didn't even know each other, and you both said the same thing. So she and her husband completely picked up on what you were trying to create by that transition from inside to outside. And it made all the difference. It's what sold the house.
It has to be seamless, that's the transition, has to be seamless. When you move from inside to outside, you almost have to be not aware that you're moving. It just has to
yeah, you're masterful at it. And then I'm thinking about, again, all these clients pop into my mind. You and I shared mutual client Mike and Anne. and they had that drainage issue. So as people are spending more time at home and walking around their yards and surveying things, they may be noticing, my gosh, why is my yard spongy? It rained 2 days ago, or that they've got a drainage issue. So while they're, that's the stuff people don't like spending money on, because you spend a lot of money and you don't see anything beautiful as a result. It's not like when you redo your kitchen, it's more like fixing a foundation. But can people tie these projects together? They've noticed something, or you go and you notice, and it's like, hey, let's create this outdoor space. And at the same time, we need to do a little work over here.
Absolutely. Actually, with our client, with the pool and a natural pool outside, it was always underwater.
Closer to the microphone.
It was always underwater. So to be able to go there and fix the drainage problem, and you're right, fixing the drainage problem is not a sexy look. It's not, right. You don't see it. It's all underground. But what's fun about fixing a drainage problem is that's usually when clients will call me. But then going there and seeing what your problem is, fixing your problem, and being practical, but again, making it pretty at the same time, by using like a dry laid, I'm going blank on the thing, dry creek bed, dry creek, the meandering path and things like that, dry creek bed, boulders.
Oh, Jennifer's pulling it up. We had a picture of one earlier.
Yes, we do have a picture somewhere there, and I think it's the last one. But
oh, there it is.
There you go. And with this one, it doesn't need to be. I mean, that was a drainage issue. We don't need to just fix the drainage issue, but it can actually complement what's around there by putting the plants around it. And so, drainage is not a fun topic that anybody wants to talk about. But as we're fixing the drainage, there are things you can do to enhance property. The one with the pool was built in, I think, 4 years ago. And just, having a nice lawn. And not only, it was not just their property, we ended up fixing all the neighbors' property, because it was the whole neighborhood. It's in the spring, so they had a lot of drainage issue.
Well, I'm so glad we had those photos. I mean, I think the dry creek bed, it's just a stunning look, and to know that it also solves a problem for people. And let's face it, with all the new construction going on at properties, we have all these infill projects. And for 20 years, your yard may have been fine, and now all of a sudden it's taking on water because someone else's runoff has changed. So,
Absolutely.
It's not just, oh, my yard has never done this. Things can change in your landscape.
Actually, things can change. Things will change in the landscaping. I always tell people, landscaping is a live thing. It's constantly changing. So, as trees are growing, shades are being created, people remove the trees. So it's constantly changing. You have to adapt to go with the changes.
And it's nice to, last week we interviewed Susie Adib from Liberty Mutual, and I was saying it's so nice to have an expert, a specific person you can call and ask questions to. Same thing with you. If people notice something's changed, or they've got a unique problem, large tree died and now it changes, how the plants are or are not thriving in the yard, it's great to have someone like you that people can call on. You're always so good about taking questions. Pragya, that's it for my questions. I know we had received a couple from other people, but before we do that, do you want to add anything else to this conversation that people should be thinking about as they're really surveying their outdoor space and thinking how they might use it better or increase their living space?
Don't be afraid. Go out there and get to know your yard, patio, side yard, front yard. I mean, just live in it.
I think people are living in it more than they used to and thinking about it more, and I think that's a good thing. I think there's some good things that have come out of all this.
Absolutely. I had a client cooking in their backyard. They took the whole stove out, and they had a
really?
whole with the blanket sitting outside and doing a little cooking.
Have fun. So I think we had a couple of questions that we had received from clients or friends that tied in. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi there.
Jennifer, do you have any of those questions on hand?
Yes, someone had asked if there's anything, um, is there anything such as low maintenance or no maintenance yards?
Um, I get that question quite a lot. Can I have a no maintenance yard? There's no such thing as no maintenance yard, but there's a very, very low maintenance yard. I usually try to create a garden for my clients that, you have to get it cleaned up, mulch maybe once a year, and that's it. Because nobody has time to really go out there and do the work. And and for my garden enthusiastic clients, I will give you space to plant stuff and have fun with it if you feel like it, and if you don't, you don't have to do anything to it, and it wouldn't look like it's empty. So yes, there is no low maintenance uh, ways to handle the garden.
That's a good question because I hear that too, and a lot of times when we're helping people either buy a home and we're kind of looking things that have gotten a little out of control, what's it going to take to maintain this yard? And the flip side is getting the home ready. What do we need to do?
Also cost. If it's a very busy yard and if you have to do lots of maintenance, you have to hire somebody to do it all the time. So when you design with the low maintenance in mind, it keeps you long-term costs low.
Right. Jennifer, were there any other questions?
Yes, we also had a question about furniture and sourcing furniture. And, when you create these outdoor rooms, do I need to get my interior designer involved? Or is that something you help with? How does that work?
What?
Say it again.
I said, or can your landscape architect figure out the outdoor furniture?
When I do my layout of my design, I usually have a furniture set there because I also, two reasons. One thing, I want to show them how they can use their outdoor rooms. Second is also to visualize as how are the movement we talked about earlier. If you have a table set up, a furniture set up, if you have 3 or 4 kids, if they're running around, how is that going to work? So that's very important. I have worked with clients to set their furnitures, or if you have an interior designer, you can work with them as well. But one thing I do tell my clients about outdoor furniture, the cushions and things, are don't go crazy and spending too much money on those things. These things are outside, so you don't you want to change it because it does get moldy and dirty soon, no matter what. It is outside. So, but
Right.
you have fun with it. Have fun with furniture.
Yeah. And it is amazing how you can add a couple of bright new cushions and it can just change that feeling,
Absolutely. And then these days you can get outdoor furniture for really good in your home.
You blanked out for a second. You can get outdoor furniture for what? A really good
price these days, because it's very popular to have outdoor patios. Like even 15, 20 years ago, it used to be a lot more pricier. So, there are lots of options out there. And so, yes, I can help with the client with their furniture and how to set it up too. Actually, I do. When I go to my client's house and if I see a furniture, they have it in the way I don't like it, I start moving it around and say, hey, I'm just playing with it, move it back if you want to, but I will do that naturally.
It's like a giant sized dollhouse, right?
Yeah.
Jennifer, were there any other questions?
Nope, we're good.
Oh, one other thing I want to think about is the permitting.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people have asked me about the question about permits is how critical, why do you need to get a permit? It's very critical to know. That's why I always ask for a plat of the property, because a lot of times you have to realize, is there easement on the property? Can you build on the property? And also what kind of permit you need to get, because it's always good to get those permits. It might take a little bit longer and a little bit extra, but it's always good to get it done the right way.
Yeah, you and I had a question recently, and you were so good about helping me with it. A woman in Glen Echo wanted to do a fence and a shed, and we had to find out about the permitting process for the shed. So that's a
Even
great
for the-
point, bringing that up.
Also for the fence, and I don't think a lot of people realize, but you have to pull a permit to replace a fence or install a new fence.
So even to replace one.
It is. So I mean, a lot of people don't do it, but it's a very easy process. But they replace it, or they just want to know. County just wants to know.
Well, that is really good to know. So I think that wraps us up. If anybody watching has other questions, I can certainly put you in touch with Pragya, or you can go to our website and contact her through that. Again, this is Pragya Mishra. She's a landscape architect and owner of Artscapes, and she's been doing this for nearly 20 years. Pragya, you want to share your website address?
Yes, it's www.artscapesliving.com.
Artscapesliving.com.
Yep.
Perfect.
ARTSCAPES living, one word.com. And thank you for this opportunity. And if I may say, I have been doing this for 20 years, and I have not met a realtor like you. So you have taken me to homes before your client will buy it and ask me questions. So please, if you have any questions in the future or anything like that, please feel free to ask me, because I know you care about your clients, and it shows.
Well, thank you for the kind words. It is the Mutual Admiration Society, because I'm so grateful you're willing to do that. It is a service to my clients, and it makes me look good in my business. And I love returning the favor and referring people to you, because I think your creativity, your thoughtfulness in your designs, and just your overall approach, I just marvel at it. And I'm so happy that we can be referral partners and help each other in our businesses. I mean, that's what it's all about. You're hearing all this news about local business right now, and I think it's really important that we all take a look at who we have around us, the talent we might not know about, and people like you, and hire them and improve our properties at the same time. So thank you for saying that. Thank you for sharing today. And thanks everybody for watching. Jennifer, thank you for the technical work behind the scenes. I love the photography that you shared. Pragya, I know that was local photographer George Brown, who does your landscape photography, and he's a great talent also. And we're very grateful for all of these people who help. So that's all I've got. We've got some more interesting topics coming up in the next few weeks. We will send out some information about that. But thank you for joining us. Send along any questions or comments, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.